guys tell me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have a lot to cover, so we're gonna kind of do this in a lightning speed. How many people have to leave by 6? Wow, a lot. Okay, we're gonna have to go really quick, so you're gonna have to write down as much as you can, as fast as you can. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Let's see. We covered wudu completely, but the one thing we didn't cover was wiping over socks. So we're going to cover that today, bi'idhnillah. Then we're going to cover 2 more things, which is, well, 3, and we're going to attempt. Okay, literally, this is like lightning speed, so those people who type very fast, this is your lucky day. Actions that nullify wudu, then we're going to cover ghusl and tayammum. We're going to attempt. May Allah put barakah in our time. And here we go. All right, as far as wiping over leather socks, or socks in general, the leather socks in Arabic are called khuffain, that's the plural, and the Arabic word for socks, non-leather socks, are jawarib. And the socks at the time of the Prophet ﷺ were not socks that you slip your foot in. They were socks where they used to take a long piece of cloth and they would wrap it around their feet and then they would slip it into a sandal. That's how they did it. The word actually comes from kawrab, which is a Persian word, and later it became jawrab, which became an Arabic word. Nonetheless, today you have socks that your foot slips in. That would fall under the category of jawarib. So by agreement of all 4 madhahib, wiping over leather socks is allowed. So by all 4, leather socks is allowed. And they should be thick, and that they should not have water seep through them. The biggest dispute is whether wiping over regular socks are allowed. And we're going to cover this quickly. The majority of scholars said they need to be leather, FYI. However, authentically reported, the Prophet ﷺ did wipe over socks, jawarib, non-leather socks. So the majority in this case do not have the evidence on their side. Sufyan al-Thawri, Ibn Mubarak, al-Shafi'i himself, Imam Ahmad, Ishaq, all of these scholars actually said it is permissible to wipe over non-leather socks, on the condition that the socks are thick enough and not see-through, and they must cover the obligatory parts that water has to be touched. However, asterisk, little side note, do they have to be thick enough? The answer is no. They just can't be see-through. They can't be see-through, like stockings. Okay? What if they have holes? Again, that's okay. Although the majority of scholars said that's not allowed. Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he wrote about this, saying that the companions were not wealthy enough not to have holes in their socks, and they did this practice. Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, he said, I narrated over 70 companions wiped over socks, over leather socks. Also, let me just put this on mute. That's over leather socks. As far as the companions that wiped over non-leather socks, they are as follows: Ali ibn Abi Talib, Anas ibn Malik, Ibn Umar, Bilal, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Abu Awfa, Sahl ibn Sa'd, Ibn Mas'ud, Al-Barra ibn Aziz, Abu Umama, Amru ibn Hurayth. So we have at least 12 companions. I believe it's 13 total. I'm missing one in my notes, that wiped over non-leather socks. So we have this as a hujjah from the companions as well. Where do you have to wipe? Is it the bottom and the top? The answer is no. That hadith is weak. Somebody might, so it's just the top, and it's from the front toes to the back of the foot. The sock has to cover at minimum past the ankles. I shouldn't say past the ankles, include the ankles. So your ankles can't show. Got it? And then when you wipe from the front of the foot to from the toe area to the back, okay, to where your leg is. Some scholars might say, well, we heard a narration that Aisha, Ali, Abu Huraira, and Ibn Abbas, they rejected wiping over non-leather socks. On the contrary, those narrations, with the exception of the one from Ibn Abbas, are all weak. One of them is weak, the other one is disconnected, and the other one is fabricated. There's a liar involved in the chain. So those three, as far as Aisha, Abu Huraira, and Ali, none of them are authentic. And on the contrary, all three of them, we have authentic reports that they did it. This is stuff why I'm saying, because you might find stuff online. You guys like to Google stuff. I found something from Ali. Well, it's not right, okay? And then the one about Ibn Abbas, Al-Bayhaqi from the Shafi'i madhab wrote that Ibn Abbas changed his opinion later on in his life, because we also have it authentically reported that he did. Okay? Good. That was the fastest discussion I've ever had on Khuffain and Jawarib, because if I went into the full detail, we need an entire lecture just for that. Okay. How long can you wear it for, and when can you do it? If you had wudu underneath your socks, you can put your socks on, and later on, when you break your wudu, you can wipe over them. Cool? So you had to be in a state of tahara before you put them on. Okay? Good. So that's why you'll find some scholars, if it's really cold in the winter, they'll actually sleep with their socks, so that when they wake up for Fajr, they just wipe over them. It's a concession, it's permissible, and the Prophet ﷺ did it as well. The socks or the shoes you're wiping over have to be pure. They cannot be made of something that is najis, like we went over, right? Like snake skin or alligator skin or pig skin, according to what I believe is the stronger opinion, and most of my teachers at least. Okay? You can also wipe over your sneakers, your shoes, as long as they cover the required parts. So they have to be at least your ankle or above. So the loafers that I'm wearing, I can't wipe over them. I would have to take my shoes off, wipe over my socks, and then I can make wudu over that. By the way, for those of you who are all strict on buying those waterproof socks and all that business, well, now you learn that you don't have to do that. Okay? Anyhow, you're allowed to wipe for 24 hours, a day and a night. When does that start? Some scholars said from the moment you put on your socks. Other scholars said, well, it's from the moment you break your wudu while wearing the socks. So there's two differences of opinion. If you ask me, I find it just so much easier that it's when you just put them on. It's really just so much easier to remember that, right? I mean, unless you're one of those people who time your passing gas and all of that good stuff, I mean, I don't see how you could accurately time that. But nonetheless, again, both opinions are fine, okay? If you're a traveler, you're allowed 3 days. You're allowed 3 days. And again, time you put them on, 3 days later, it's done. So if you put them on at 7 a.m., by 7 a.m. the next day, you got to take them off. And that kind of promotes some cleanliness too, if you think about it, right? I mean, at that point, your feet probably smell like pretty bad, right? We don't want to say, so okay. All right, we're moving along here. We covered that. Actions that nullify the wudu. If you urinate, right? If a person urinates, if you pass gas, you pass wind, if you defecate, passing wind, some people, and this has come up, I'll save you the question, what if I don't know if I passed wind? Like, I don't know. Some people say, I felt something, but I don't know. But Rasul ﷺ said, because the companions asked him, so you don't have to feel too shy. The companions asked him, and he said, if you didn't hear a sound, and you didn't have a smell, or you didn't have, if you don't smell anything, then that was not wind. That was probably just an air gap. Cool? Any questions? No? That happens. Okay. Emission of madi, which is a sticky fluid that comes as a result of arousal. There's a specific ruling regarding that. Some of the Shafi'i scholars said you have to do istijama, which is you have to wash, right? You have to wash with water yourself. If a little comes out from being aroused, the Prophet ﷺ told the companion to tell Ali to wash and then make wudu. He said if you use a stone, it will not clean it. So you have to wash that area. Okay, the majority of scholars said that you can use tissue or something like that. But the Shafi'i scholars said that you have to use water. Okay, the emission of wadi, which is after you urinate, the fluid that comes out after urinating, that would require wudu. Okay, here's the difference of opinion regarding sleep. If after you sleep, does it break your wudu or does it not? There's a lot of opinions on it. I'll just mention the following. Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad, they both said if it is a deep sleep, it breaks the wudu. If it's a light sleep, the wudu is not broken. Imam Shafi'i said it depends on how you're sitting up, which I actually thought it was pretty interesting how he mentioned it. Umar ibn al-Khattab also has this opinion himself. And some of the Hanbali scholars, they said sleeping breaks your wudu unless you sleep in a position where you are sitting down firmly. Let's say, you know how some people, they could sit down and they're waiting for salah and they kind of just lean over, right? They said that does not break your wudu. If you lay down, that breaks your wudu. And by the way, there are evidences galore under every one of these opinions. But like I said, I'm just giving you the ones that are the most popular that you heard of. Like, for example, you may have heard of the opinion of Ibn Hazm as well. He actually believes that sleep doesn't break your wudu at all, because the Prophet ﷺ went into a deep sleep and he woke up and he continued. Some of them said that could have been an exception for the Prophet, etc. But anyhow, Allahu A'lam. So, if you want to follow the opinion that if it's a deep sleep, fine. If you want to follow the opinion that you sit up, or if you're laying down on your back, that breaks your wudu, fine. Whichever one. Okay? Let's see. Other differences of opinion. Touching the person of the opposite gender. Touching the person of the opposite gender. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, touching the opposite gender does not break wudu. Does not break wudu. And this is according to the majority of scholars. Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he said that if you touch another person of the opposite gender, even your own spouse, you lose your wudu. Even your own spouse, you lose your wudu. Contact between a man and a woman, except when marriage between them would be prohibited on the account of a relationship, then it would nullify the wudu. Any contact, he said. Okay? Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad have a middle ground, if you will, which is that if the touching is accompanied by arousal, then it breaks the wudu because the possibility of medi coming out. So this is weird, and I'll explain that because I used to make fun wasn't smart at the time, because some of your teachers are don't take jokes so well. But anyhow, I said, so let's say, for example, somebody touched the opposite gender, and we knew they were on wudu. Then all of a sudden we see them heading to the restroom making wudu. We're going to think now, oh wow, this guy just got aroused. It's all weird. So everybody starts questioning what's going on right now. It's weird, it's awkward. And there's no evidence for that, by the way. But it seems that the stronger opinion is what Imam Abu Hanifa has mentioned. Okay. Does touching the private part invalidate the wudu? Does touching the private part invalidate wudu? It seems that the majority of scholars said yes, it breaks the wudu. Some scholars said, now this is important because why? The sisters or the brothers these days, whoever decides to take on that role, when you're changing the diaper of the kid and you're wiping those areas, some scholars said if it's your fingertips alone, then it doesn't break the wudu. Some scholars said that, right? Some scholars said where it does is the palm. Okay? That's where it breaks the wudu. Okay? Again, I am really condensing this information. As you can see, just so you know, Tahara, this chapter is probably the largest, let me think real quick, is the largest chapter in all of fiqh. So what we're doing here is we're doing the impossible. Okay? And this is almost more like a fatwa session than it is a student of knowledge session. Because if it was student of knowledge, I'd give you everybody's opinion and I'd try to break it down with the evidence that they have. But nonetheless, time is of the essence here. Okay? All right. Some scholars said eating camel meat breaks the wudu. Eating camel meats breaks the wudu. Ibn Rushd, he said the scholars in the first generation disagreed about the obligation after eating what was cooked on fire. The majority of scholars who came later allowed it. Most of the time they ate food and did not touch fire. That's the hadith of Jabir. The majority of scholars said it does not break the wudu eating camel meat. You guys don't worry about this unless you go to like the those burger spots in Manhattan where they have like ostrich and all sorts of weird stuff, duck, and there's 1,000 things you could have. There's some of those burger spots. But Australia, they eat camel burgers like you guys eat beef burgers. They eat it night and day. So if you have any Australian friends, just or if you're ever visiting there. Okay, anyhow. What about food that is prepared on fire? If it's been abrogated that you have to make wudu after eating food that was prepared on fire, it is permissible if you wish. If you want to, you can. But for camel meat, it seems that you still need to, according to the summary. All right. Does vomiting invalidate the wudu? There's two types of vomiting. One is impure and the other is pure. If it has the same qualities as what you ate, then it is pure. If it has a foul smell, then it is impure because of something that was in your stomach for a long time. Okay. By the way, that goes on a side note. Does vomiting invalidate your siyam? Just on a side note, because Ramadan's coming up. If it is intentional, you forced yourself to vomit, then yes. If it is unintentional, then no. Okay, let me see if there's anything else that... Okay. All right, there is another one that I should mention. You probably heard of it. Let me see. Did I do this one? I'm not going to cover that. Here it is. Okay, some scholars mention that if you laugh in your salah, you actually broke your salah and you actually broke your wudu. Anybody heard of that before? You have, right? Because you should have. It's a Hanafi opinion. Imam Abu Hanifa believed that if you laugh in your salah, you broke your wudu and you broke your salah. However, the scholars agreed that laughter breaks the salah. The smile does not break the wudu. If sound comes out, your prayer is broken. That's the key thing. The reason that Abu Hanifa has this ruling is he based it off a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he ordered a group of people who laughed in their prayer to make wudu and pray. However, that hadith is weak. Had it been authentic, everybody would have wound up agreeing. Okay. Let me cover. I said next is ghusl and tayammum, right? Ghusl and tayammum. Okay. Let's cover ghusl if we have time. Where's the time? Okay, we're coming close. All right. And then we'll cover about, if you can recycle on within junub, if we have time to cover all that. Okay. Ghusl is a full body washing, an intention that it needs to be accompanied by an intention, like we mentioned all other things. What actions require ghusl, which is a full body wash, right? If you have marital relations with or without ejaculation. Because the Rasul ﷺ mentioned when the two circumcised parts meet, speaking about sexual intercourse. Okay, if you have an orgasmic discharge, seminal discharge, if it's a full discharge, if it's a partial discharge that's not accompanied by pleasure, then you at least need to get that part off, like we mentioned, right? If it's a full discharge, you need to make ghusl. Now this goes into the opinion of masturbation. Masturbation is haram, according to Imam Shafi'i, because he used the ayah in the Quran that Allah allowed your privates to only be touched by your spouse. So Allah made that very clear. And that's the evidence he used, the ayah in the Quran. There are some scholars who said that if you are in a dire situation, right, terrible situation, I don't know how this could even happen. I really don't. But if it's between you sleeping with the girl or the guy, or you masturbate, just masturbate. I don't know how you put yourself in that situation. It's a fiqh question that comes up, but nonetheless, they said, meaning if it's an absolute dire need, okay? So now you know. All right, also things that need ghusl is postpartum bleeding. After completing your menstrual cycle or after postnatal bleeding. You'll know that after you get married, usually after you finish your menstruation cycle, you take a shower, and then you're allowed to have intercourse. Some scholars said do you have to take a shower, which is ghusl, right? We're saying, do you have to make ghusl before, or could you just, her cycle's finished, could you have relations and then it's just one shower, right? Because then you're saving on a shower. According to the majority of scholars, no. She has to do a shower first. She has to do her ghusl first, because Allah mentioned that until they become tahir. Until they become tahir, then you're not allowed to go towards them. And they become tahir once they have their ghusl completed. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, you don't. They could have their relations and then one shower is enough. But again, the evidence seems to be that you shower first, okay? Death by natural causes, we would make ghusl on the deceased, except if they died as a martyr in battle. And a difference of opinion, whether you have to make ghusl or not, it's a Shafi'i and a Hanbali opinion, which is that if you accept Islam, a person who newly accepts Islam, they should do ghusl. But again, it's not agreed upon. Okay. Checking if I'm trying to stay on target here. If you are in a state of junub and you didn't make ghusl, what can you not do? You cannot pray. You cannot make tawaf. You cannot touch the Quran with your bare hands. You cannot recite the Quran according to the stronger opinion, although there is a difference of opinion. I'll make that very clear. Some scholars said you could do it without making sounds. Okay. You could recite that so that you can hear yourself enough to hear yourself, some scholars said. We know the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it, and that's what led some scholars to have the opinion that you're not allowed to recite Quran if you're in a state of junub. And also staying in the masjid. You are not allowed to stay in the masjid if you are in a state of junub. You're allowed to enter. You are allowed to enter and allowed to stay. Sorry, but you're not allowed to sit in the. If you're in your menstruation cycle. Sorry, if a sister's in her menstruation, she shouldn't be sitting in the areas of salah, the scholar said. But as far as going to the masjid, you can, but you shouldn't. Obviously, you can't pray. So if you needed to go to the masjid, come out, that's fine. Okay, I'm gonna go on. Okay. It is recommended to do ghusl on Friday for Salat al-Jum'ah. That's a whole discussion on its own. I'm just summarizing for you. And the rule of thumb is if you kind of sweat, you smell, you should take a shower before going to Jum'ah. And if not, and if you're clean, etc., it's fine. Some scholars allowed the shower to start from the night of Jum'ah. So from Thursday night. From Maghrib time onward, you could actually start, you could make that intention for ghusl for Friday. How do you make ghusl? What is the minimum? The minimum, there's 4 things. 2 of them are agreed upon. 2 of them, there's a difference of opinion. Number 1 is the intention, agreed upon. All 4 schools, even Abu Hanifa, right? And we mentioned why, right? Because he said with wudu, the reason he said you don't need the intention, because nobody else on earth is performing such actions except the Muslims, right? Interesting. He said, however, for ghusl, looks like a shower. You could have just said, oh, I'm sweaty, it was a hot day at work. If you just wanted to shower, that's not ghusl, right? That's why for me, I just make it a rule of thumb. Every time you get in the shower, just make the intention for ghusl. You just saved yourself, right? Every time. And so you have to wash the external body completely. The external body completely. Where there's a difference of opinion is washing the inner mouth and sniffing and blowing out water from the nose. So the nose and the mouth, the inside parts, this is a Hanbali and a Hanafi requirement. I mean, you're taking a shower anyway, you might as well, right? I mean, you might as well. Okay. Does ghusl encompass wudu? According to the stronger opinion, it does. Okay? Some scholars have the opinion that after you make ghusl, you need to go make wudu. All right? I will tell you, though, that the Prophet ﷺ, he actually did wudu in his ghusl, in the middle of his ghusl. So that's the perfect way to do your ghusl. How did he do it? Again, the minimum. By the way, this could be very important, right? You woke up in a state of junub. You got like 6 minutes left or 5 minutes left before Fajr. Right? You had a wet dream, something happened, who knows, right? Or you had relations with your spouse the night before and you went to sleep because you don't have to, you can go to sleep in a state of junub. You don't have to do ghusl immediately, right? And Aisha radiallahu anha, she reported the Prophet ﷺ did both. So there's a beauty and a rahmah in there. So then you got 5 minutes left. You got to make ghusl. You know immediately, I make the intention, soak your entire body with water, boom, done. Go pray your fajr so you don't miss it. So it can come in handy, guys. It can. But this is the perfect ghusl. This is the perfect ghusl. You make the intention. You say Bismillah. 3 times you wash your hands. Then you use your left hand to clean your private area. You use your left hand to clean your private area. This is the order the Prophet ﷺ would do it. You make wudu without your feet, not doing the feet. And we'll cover why. Then 3 times he would take water, handful, 3 times water over his head. The right side, then the left side, then the middle. The right side, the left side, then the middle. He'd make sure that the scalp was wet. The scalp was wet. Your entire hair doesn't need to be wet, but your scalp must be wet. That's important for those people who have like dreadlocks or braids or whatever. You don't have to undo all of that. You just have to make sure that water gets to the scalp. And today with the shower, the invention of the shower, which, that's pretty easy to do, okay? That's great. Some people that wear the shower cap, that's not going to help your situation, all right? That kind of defeats the purpose. Then you wash the rest of your body until it's all wet. You use soap and shampoo, and the Prophet ﷺ recommended using these good smells, right? Then he did the feet last. Did the feet last. Why? Because back in the day, you see, we're okay on time. Back in the day, they used to have a satil, like a little basin, if you will, and they filled the water with that, and they would make their wudu in there. So he did his feet last because typically your feet are entrenched in that water. Cool? Makes sense? So he would exit that water, clean his feet afterwards, outside of that water, not using that water. Where did we go? Oh yeah, he would do that. And then the sunnah would be to wipe the water off when you're done and not use a towel. So he'd wash his feet somewhere else. However, again, with the invention of the tub has an incline, right? That goes to the drain area. So none of that nasty water's still there. Unless you're one of those soakers. You need to be in there, you fill up the tub with 30 gallons of water, not sure why. And then you want to perform one of those things. Well, what we're talking about is if the water's flowing, you can just wash your feet right there. Make sense? Here's the interesting part. The sunnah is to air dry. The sunnah is not to use a towel, FYI. The sunnah is to wipe the water off of you. To wipe the water off of you. And the Rasul ﷺ mentioned, when you do that, all of the drops of water that are coming off of you, Allah will be wiping a sin for every one of those drops. That's a lot of drops of water. And so when you're using the towel, you're skipping out on some sunnah. All right? But, you know, it's fine if you use a towel. I just want to make sure. All right? Okay, so we're good there. That's ghusl. Questions on ghusl? Skip anything there? I think I caught it all. Yeah?
Is the same applied when someone passes away?
Yeah, we mentioned that. I think you came a little late. Yep, somebody passed away. We do ghusl on a person who passes away. That's a whole subject, though, how you clean the body of deceased. If you want to get into that career, that's, you could study it. It's not hard. But that's a whole topic, okay?
Do you have to be in a state of tahara to begin fasting, or no?
No, that is not a requirement. Okay? Good question. Do you have to be in a state of tahara to start your fast? Fasting is not contingent upon being in a state of a junub or not, right? And so that's why this question comes up a lot with marital. Are you married? No, okay, good question. People who are married, they wonder, well, the morning started, we overslept, right? And we're both in junub. Do I not have to fast today? No, you have to fast. They thought they were going to, get one. Freebie. Okay, so no, you fast away. Okay, now, tayammum. Tayammum is dry ablution. Dry ablution. When wudu is not feasible, you do tayammum. Okay? Let's see. Oh, yeah. I don't need to go. There's a lot of information here. But anyhow, how do you do tayammum is very simple. If you have the intention, like we always said, you use dust or dirt. Does it have to be dust or dirt? You have to like go get a scoop from the backyard? The answer is no. The scholars, according to the stronger opinion, anything that is naturally found on earth, you can actually do tayammum with it. And what do? You actually pat that surface, right? So let's say this was marble or granite. That's naturally found on earth. So for those of you who have a nice marble countertop in the kitchen and the water's not running, right? Boom, done. Pat the surface, and then because it's a ritual, it's not intended to clean you up. This is you doing it for the sake of Allah to pray, right? Okay, so you wipe over the face, and then you wipe part of the right hand with the left hand, and then not the whole arm. Just wipe part of the right hand with the left hand, and then the left hand with the right hand. That's ghusl. That's tayammum. Any questions? Yes.
So if you're like say the water starts working again,
Yeah.
does the wudu from your tayammum still stay that you can like pray the next salah, or do you have to use water?
No. Once water is present, that concession has been nullified. That's it. To the extent that some scholars went to the extent that said that, let's say you did tayammum for Salat al-Dhuhr, and Salat al-Asr is at 4:30, and the water came back on at 4 o'clock. Some scholars would even have you go make wudu and repeat your dhuhr. Not strong though. Not strong opinion, but I'm just trying to show you the extent. But yes, once the water is now present, you need to make wudu. Is water the only thing though? The answer is no. It's not. It's the state, right? If it's a condition. Let's say it's blistering cold outside, right? And you're on a job site and you got bottles of water, but if you put that on, you'll literally freeze to death. In that case, you could do tayammum, right? And one of the companions did that. He came out of his house. It was blistering cold, right? And he went to the masjid, and they were told that, and he's the only one not shivering. Right? What's up with this guy? How's he got wudu? So he said, I did tayammum. The Prophet ﷺ, he came to him. He said, why did you make tayammum? He said, Ya Rasulullah. So I said, it's just very freezing outside. So I thought I would get sick. So the Prophet ﷺ smiled at him. Meaning what? It's permissible, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ, in his presence, he cannot allow something haram to happen in front of him without him condemning it. Make sense? Okay? So it is permissible. Also, so we mentioned if it possesses a health risk, or the water that you have available to you is impure. Okay? All right. And some scholars said, if it's also the water you got left is only the water that you have to drink, you could actually make tayammum. So let's say you're on a job site. They got no water, right? They got the porta-johns back there. You got one bottle of water left. That's your drinking water. It's hot outside. What do? Do you do your wudu with it or do you drink? The answer is, if you can make wudu using some of the water and still have left for you to drink, right? Then that's fine. But if you only have enough to drink, then you go ahead and make tayammum. Right? Even if that water is present, but that's your drinking water. All right? Go ahead. Next. Question. So I saw somebody. Yeah.
So what if like you're praying and the water comes back while you're praying? Is it good? Is your tayammum like I guess?
Say that again.
I said, what if you're praying and the water comes back like?
No. If you already started your salah, you do not break your salah. That's it. That's the rule of thumb. Right? You started your salah. You're now praying to Allah Azza wa Jal. You continue, because when that time came, now if you know that the water is coming, and you just say, you don't want to wait, that's a different story. But his plumber says, hey, 5 minutes, he'll be up and running. That van just went off. Just give it a second, right? That's really it. All right. Do I have to cover anything else? Okay. Any questions now? That's really what I wanted to cover. Yes, sister.
So if someone's in a state of janaba and again, like there's no water or anything, does tayammum cover that as well? Or
Say it again.
Like together, like being impaired, do you have to, like, if there's no water available, does doing tayammum cover that as well? Or,
For if you're in Junub?
yeah.
Yeah, this happened at the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where there was a Sahabi, he was wounded in battle. He was wounded in battle, and he had a very bad gash on his head. And it was drying up, right? You know, the blood platelets, it closes it up. But then he woke up in a state of junub. So he was wondering, does he need to make full ghusl, or can he do something else like tayammum? The companions who were around him didn't know any better. So they told him, you need to make ghusl because that's junub. Well, when he did his ghusl, his wound cracked open and he died. The Prophet ﷺ was so upset. He said, قَتَلُوا فَيَقْتَلُهُمُ اللَّهِ. He said, they killed him, may Allah kill them. That's how upset he was. That's why when you answer things in the religion without ilm, you're going to harm people and harm yourself. That's why it's better to say, I don't know. That's why Imam Malik, rahimahullah, and many other scholars, they said, نِصْفَ الْعِلْمِ إِنَّ تَعْلَمُ لَا أَدْرِي. And half of knowledge is learning, I don't know. Half of knowledge. You've learned half of ilm by saying, I don't know. It's really just, I don't know. You know, you come out of college, you graduated with an electrical engineering degree, your family comes up, what's going on with this light? He says, I don't know. What did you go to college for? It's a waste of time. It's okay. Say, I don't know. You get a master's degree. It's okay to say, I don't know. You get a PhD. It's okay to say, I don't know. Right? That's the thing there. But yeah, to answer your question, you can do tayammum if that's the case. Right? So if it poses a health risk like that, like it did with that Sahabi. Right? Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to you and then we'll come back. Yep.
So if you make wudu on your socks and take your socks off after you pray, is your wudu broken? Or?
According to our school, yes. And you need to you have to remake wudu. According to every school has something that you need to do something. Some of them said just go wash your feet. Right? Because that was the only part that you nullified. I mean, if you're going to sit there and take the time to wash your feet, might as well just make wudu. That's how I look at it. I mean, and then you avoid differences of opinion. Literally, you avoid all the differences of opinion as if after you take your socks off that you had wudu on, boom, you go make wudu. However, if you had wudu, you put your socks on, you made a couple prayers, you got home, you didn't lose your wudu, still didn't lose your wudu, you took your socks off, you still have your wudu. Because your wudu in this case was on your feet, not on your socks. Make sense? And that's the reason I like to stick with that opinion, because it doesn't confuse anyone. You know? The other ones really confuse people. Anyhow, yep.
Does blood break your wudu?
Does?
Does blood break your wudu?
According to the Hanbalis, it does. According to the Hanbalis, it does break your wudu. I don't believe it does. Allahu alam. I do not believe it breaks your wudu. Any other questions? We did the impossible, folks. I mean, I would have loved to help you understand why some scholars mentioned this, yes, no, but at least you have what I have studied in my years as the stronger opinions, etc. Okay? Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Sold, inshallah, tomorrow we will be doing the cryptocurrency at 6:30. 6, right? Be there at 6. I'll be there 6:30. You guys always running late. Today I was running late. All right, and we're doing cryptocurrency and NFTs, and then get ready for Ramadan. All right, get ready for Ramadan, inshallah. Allahumma balighna Ramadan. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لكم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم.